So, guys, we are back with season two of the Fantasy Kickabout, and we are very, very excited about the season ahead, whether it's FPL, whether it's the Premier League as well. But today, to kickstart the new season, we are joined by a very special guest from FPL Éire, the owner of FPL Éire on Instagram and Twitter, Niall Crossan. Niall, you're very welcome to the podcast. Obviously, you're here to chat fantasy football today. How excited are you about the season? And also, if you want to give us a little bit of an introduction into yourself, your page, and your history with FPL.
So obviously, thanks, Gary, first of all, for inviting me on to chat kind of all things FPL. But yeah, no, as you're saying, 2nd of August today, 11 days. The countdown is real. You can, if you're on Instagram, you're on Twitter, you know, there's kind of the buzz is kind of building up towards that kind of Friday night kickoff. But yeah, no, just kind of going back into your own page, sorry, FPL Éire, it's kind of something I've had a passion for, kind of fantasy Premier League kind of all my life. And I was always kind of on the kind of fantasy football scout. I never joined it, but like always kind of went through the kind of forums looking kind of what was going on. And then I just took a notion 2 years ago. I said, right, I'm going to try make something out of this. So I just started my own kind of Twitter page called FPL Éire. And thankfully enough now, the last 2 years now, it's just been growing from strength to strength. But yeah, then kind of going back into my own kind of records. So I've been playing the game since I was about 13, 14. Kind of got a few decent ranks along the way now. I've won top kind of 9K, but top 10K. One top 11K, two top 16Ks, and then last year then I was finished top 27K. You know yourself, it was kind of a bit of a groggy enough season last year, so I was kind of happy. I was kind of aiming trying to get towards that another top 10K, but considering COVID and all that now, I was happy enough to get a top 27K rank.
Brilliant, yeah, and obviously you mentioned some of your records, which are pretty consistent. I know a lot of FPL managers would dream of those sort of finishes on a consistent level as well. But how excited are you for the season? And I know we're kind of still on the back end of COVID, so that did have a big effect last year, especially when it came to managers trying to organize a bench in particular. Because obviously players will be out due to COVID, potentially a couple of days into the game week. So there was no options to change it. So how excited are you for the season, and what do you think the season ahead for FPL managers is going to bring?
Yeah, well, no more than yourself, I'm hoping it's a lot different to last year. I'm hoping that we won't be going into game weeks, you know, as you said there, 2 days into the game week, Fulham and Spurs is going to be called off, and you've got Kane and Son in your team. So I'm hoping kind of this year, the way I kind of play my game, it was kind of a weird enough last year because I kind of go kind of all out on the first 11, and then I kind of have like a weak enough bench and make sure I've won at least 1 or 2 players on the bench that at least get 2 points, 1 or 2 points. You know, if for some reason one of me starting 11 doesn't play. So kind of last year, it kind of made me kind of wildcard early enough. I was kind of from the start I went all out 11, same way I played every year. And obviously, you know yourself, then COVID came along and matches being called off, fixtures being rearranged. You know, it was kind of a, you know, I was lucky enough it wasn't my first year playing FPL. Otherwise, I would have been given up by Christmas. But yeah, no, I'm hoping. You know, there's still kind of uncertainty whether how COVID is going to affect this year. But I'm just going to stick to the normal way I play it. I'm going for like a small enough, weak enough bench, and kind of first 11. You know, at the end of the day, you know, you don't get points on your bench. Like that's the kind of mindset I have. You see a lot of teams on Twitter and that now, they're spreading the funds just in case matches are called off, but there's no way to call it. So I'm hoping even if there's our games going to be called off, we'll know it before the game week starts.
Brilliant. And we obviously obviously touched on the FPL game last year, where I think there was a record number of players, whether that was now down to COVID or not.
Yeah.
Probably more than likely people wanting something to do, especially with games on pretty much every day of the week. But for managers out there, and you obviously kind of touched on focusing on a starting 11 and not as having as much, I suppose, value on the bench. What would be, if obviously if you want to reveal, but what would be your secret to FPL and having those consistent finishes? Would it be again focusing on that, or would it be certain player selection? Would it be a less amount of transfers made throughout the season compared to some of your competitors?
Yeah, so basically when I'm 24 now, so I started playing when I was about 13, 14, and it's easy to see, I didn't really kind of understand the game back then, like taking hits and that, but I don't know if you know the website live fpl.net. I kind of get into this earlier on, but it's a godsend pretty much how point hits affect your rank. Last year a 4-point hit when I was around like 15, 20k, a 4-point hit would have brought you down to 40k. So if you know that, it kind of base your factor on that. Say like if you're basically put into the first thing, if you're going for Kane or another striker, if you're taking a -4 hit, Kane has to get a goal to be making the same points as them. So just something to factor that in. If you're taking hits, you need to make sure that this player, he's going to at least get an attack and return or a clean sheet to make the hit worthwhile.
Yeah. And like there is so much to the game, but I suppose the most exciting part is sitting down, picking your team, trying not to be, obviously if people are watching on YouTube, they'll see Niall and myself both wearing Manchester United jerseys. For any listeners, obviously you'll be aware now that we are wearing Manchester United jerseys, so obviously trying not to be biased towards certain teams, teams you support or certain players that you might like. But we might just touch on, because obviously it's in the news right now in relation to Harry Kane, who didn't turn up for Spurs training this morning, which means potentially he could be on the move to Man City. How many teams and how many FPL managers do you think their plans have been messed up with this Kane decision failing to return for preseason?
I'd say you're probably talking about 99% of managers now at the moment that have their team messed up off that, because it's just a factor of having, if you want Kane, you need to decide whether you need to want Bruno or you want Salah. But as my kind of where I'm looking at my team now, I'm trying to fit all three of them in, but then that obviously affects 36 million that's gone on 3 players. You've that much then to spread between 13, 15, or 12, 13 players if you only pick 2 kind of 12.5 players, but certainly affecting a lot now, because my strategy at the moment now, I had Toney and Watkins up top, so I had 2 kind of mid to cheap price strikers. But if Kane comes in, he had a record for goals and assists last season. I think I seen a stat that City scored 29 more goals than Spurs last season. Obviously, it might affect Kane's, assists, but surely he's going to be on it in a lot of those crosses, a lot of those balls into the box, especially the way De Bruyne. You seen the range of pass he has last year, every year. So City needed one person to be on that. If Kane's going to be there at 12 million, he's a lot of money, fair enough. But if he's going to be on end all those, he has to be in your team.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the value, but it could be value for money or value for points in terms of the game. And again, obviously, you look at Harry Kane, and probably both of us might have been in a similar position. If Kane was to remain at Spurs, probably wouldn't opt to go with him. But it's almost like if he moves to Man City and you don't take that chance with Harry Kane, could you lose out? Because there'll be a lot more managers out there going with Harry Kane. And like you said, that the caliber of players behind Harry Kane, the amount of chances Man City create, you're almost expecting minimum 25 goals from Harry Kane. Even if he was to pick up an injury and be out for a month, you'd still expect him to pick up thereabouts that number of goals. So would you be kind of thinking along those lines as well, in terms of if he stayed with Spurs, you probably wouldn't touch him, and then if you went to City?
Yeah, that's the thing. Spurs haven't the nicest kind of fixtures to start off. I think it's game week 10. They've a run of 3 or 4 nice fixtures all in a row. But that's it. Yeah, Man City, they can score score against anyone on their day. Like, then if they get Grealish as well, you have Grealish, Mahrez, kind of stringy enough players in the box. If they get fouled, then Kane's going to be taking the penalties. So yeah, if you don't have him, I'm the only thing that'd put you off Kane, surely, because they're playing Spurs the first game. Like, you wouldn't know, would he miss out that game? But then if you don't go with him, he ends up playing. He scores. His price could be 12.1, 12.2 million by game week 2, and then you're already priced out. If you didn't keep 0.5 going into the first game in your bank, you're going to be priced out 0.2 million already. So you're just kind of chasing points, then chasing money to get him back in.
Yeah, it is a big decision for FPL managers. Like you said, obviously some of us were chatting in the WhatsApp group earlier about whether Kane will actually be transferred to Man City before that game.
Yeah,
I personally don't think he would. I think Levy will wait till afterwards. But again, that puts a lot of FPL managers kind of on hold with whether to bring him in. And like you said, the value could potentially change as well. When it comes to, we'll say, premium players, the likes of Fernandes, Salah, and potentially Kevin De Bruyne as well, do you think it's a case for those players that if you have them, you don't really gain too much, because a lot of FPL managers have them, obviously depending on whether they use chips with them or captain certain players, or do you think by obviously not having them, you lose out so much when it comes to those sort of premium players?
See, it's hard. So this Kane going to City, it gives managers the decision of, it might be a good thing. Well, not for my team at the moment, but it gives managers a choice. They can only go with a certain amount of premiums. So picking the right premiums at the right time, if you have Kane, I can't see it probably doubling up on De Bruyne. You're going to have to spread the risk somewhere. If Bruno's ownership is going to be so high, Salah's ownership is going to be so high. So for them premiums, you're going to have at least 2 of them. It just all depends which premium you pick and if it's at the right time, But the easy thing is with the midfielders, there's 3, 12, 12.5 midfielders. So if one of them is kind of on a purple patch, you can switch over and back between them. But if Kane is flying and you have like a 7.5, 6.5 million striker up top, you're going to be taking a hit to get him straight back in if you don't have him. So that's only one thing. Kane is probably the kind of difficult to work around, just because all the kind of lower kind of striker options are more appealing. You have Watkins there, 7.5. Phillips' first 3 fixtures are lovely, and then you have Toney, 6.5. I think he's nearly touching 30-40% ownership at the moment. So it kind of goes into that. If you don't have Toney, he scores against Arsenal, same kind of thing. His ownership is going to skyrocket. He could be 6.7, 6.8. He might go 0.3 by the time game week 2 starts. And so it's just a complete headache, really. All these kind of things, all these little factors you have to kind of process in your head, like, but the difference between the midfielders and the strikers, at least you've 3 premium midfielders, so it's an easier route to get to the other one if you have to. Whereas Kane, then if your team isn't set up to get him in, you're kind of chasing points already then.
And just kind of put you a little bit on the spot, just with a question. Before obviously we go on to talk about some other players in other positions. To start the season, we'll say Kane has moved to Man City. What 2 premium players are you selecting from Salah, Fernandes, Kane, and De Bruyne?
It has to be. I know of United top on at the moment, but number 1 is Salah. Just there's always that unwritten rule in FPL: if you don't know who to captain Salah. And then option number 2, kind of based off the fact earlier on I was saying about Mahrez and Grealish, but if we've Sancho, we've Cavani, we've Greenwood, I can see more. I know we got an awful lot of penalties last year, but if Bruno's stepping up to take them, I know of United jersey on as well, but Salah and Bruno would be the 2 ones that we'd focus on to start off, because you never know with Kane, that kind of first fixture, just because the fact that they're playing Spurs, that's the kind of only thing that put me off him. And then obviously I mentioned the kind of lower price strikers that they have nice fixtures as well compared to City's. But if I just had to pick 2 at the moment, I'm looking at 3. But if I had to pick 2, it'd be Salah and Bruno, right?
Yeah, good choice. We gotta keep it real with Man United players.
Yeah.
And also we probably look at, I know Kane, was it last season and or the season before, broke his September or August September duck, where before he hadn't scored for those couple of months, or even a month I think it was. So again, that could be in Kane's head come a move to Man City last minute as well. So probably a good choice with Salah and Fernandes. But Niall, if we were to look at kind of other positions within the team, what players at the moment are kind of, we'll say, are standing out in terms of that they're almost must-haves in your team? And also, what sort of differentials at the moment would you be pointing FPL managers towards?
Yeah, so just starting back in the defense line, first name in there has to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. You know, he's going to be on set pieces, kind of free kicks around the edge of the box. Liverpool, they're I think it's 1-6. Game week 3, their only tough fixture is Chelsea, so I can see a lot of clean sheets for Liverpool the first 6. I think they're playing 2 promoted sides as well. So seeing a lot of players going for the double up, but then obviously this Kane news as well. They might have space or funds to double up. So if you're going with one, definitely just Trent, have Trent in there as well. And then United have nice fixtures to start off as well. I think Luke Shaw, I know there's kind of rumours enough. He was playing with broken ribs there during the summer, but I seen a tweet there that he should be back in contention for the Leeds game in game week 1. I just think 5.5 million United after signing Varane Maguire. I think we can see a lot of clean sheets in that defence this season. And Luke Shaw is going to be bombing up down the line. I know Sancho will be the other wing compared to him, but it'll be interesting to see if Martial starts in that wing or if Greenwood starts in that wing. With Rashford out now until October. But them two, it all depends on Kane pretty much. But that's 5.5 million. That's a nice chunkier kind of defence budget gone there. But yeah, them two kind of premium to mid price is what I'd be looking at. You have Digne as well, 5.5. But he's a kind of hot and cold player. Digne, I don't think Everton weren't the best last year only for keeping clean sheets. I was kind of looking at Christmas time. I could be wrong in saying this, but I think Everton had 2 clean sheets between the start of the season and Christmas. Rafa Benitez might kind of tighten them up at the back line, but I know Everton do have nice fixtures, but I prefer United's defence now to Everton's for them running fixtures. And then into the midfield, so you've your 12.5 million, you've Bruno and Fernandes. That's a nice chunk of your budget going on there. Essential compared to them two, they're the kind of priority you should be looking at. Round other prices, you've kind of if you're looking for a differential, then you've kind of Harvey Barnes. I think he about 6-7% ownership. I'm looking at him, but then as well, if you're Bruno, you might want to triple up on Greenwood. But I think if Greenwood starts up front for United now, I could see him sharing a lot of game time with him and Cavani. I think he's only like 3-4% owned. If he gets off to a flyer now, Leeds game to start off, there could be what was it 6-2 last year, and I can't remember the return leg or the return match in Leeds. I can't remember what the score was.
Wasn't it 0-0? Was it
0-0? Yeah, I think it actually was. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully if there's goals in that game, surely Greenwood and Bruno might be on that. But yeah, they're the kind of if you're looking for a differential, then you've Star. I think he's about 6-7% ownership. Watford 1-6. They've actually nice kind of fixtures. He's kind of small but going under the radar, and I think he's took 2 penalties for Watford now during pre-season. So if he's on penalties, I can't imagine Deeney would be starting too many games, and I think he's an next choice penalty taker after that. And then going up front, then you've Toney. I think he's the highest striker owned in the game at the moment now. He's about 30-40% ownership. So yeah, you've him for 6.5. If he doesn't start off well, then you've Pukki. He's only 6 million, and then Norwich have nice fixtures from 5 to I think it's 12, so it's an easy kind of hop on, hop off there. And then you have the pick of the bunch then with the 7.5 strikers. You've Watkins, you've DCL at 8, you've who else? You've Antonio, you've Wilson. It's kind of it's hard to pick between them 3 now. But just fill his fixtures to start the season now 1 to 3. I'm lining up Watkins for that now.
And just 2 things that touch on. Obviously, it looks like Grealish could potentially be going to Man City. Do you think that transfer will have a huge impact on Villa and the likes of Ollie Watkins and other players that are in contention to be in maybe an FPL manager's starting 11?
Yeah. I think it brings Buendia's case up a lot because he's going to be on more set pieces, corners, and at 6.5, he's great value. I actually forgot Rafinha. He's only 6.5. Sorry, I wanted to mention him during the midfielders. Yeah, but it definitely heightens Buendia's case now because he's going to be more kind of picking up set pieces. It's going to be an interesting one to see who's going to be taking their penalties. Because I know Watkins, he's scored one, missed one. And then I don't know if Buendia took them at Norwich. No, it's Pookie that took them. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to take that. But Villa, the sign Bailey there off Leverkusen. So I know he's not going to have the kind of same impact as Grealish had with Villa. But if you've Buendia, Bailey, I don't know who's going to play the other side. Will it be El Ghazi or Traore? It's going to be a kind of fight off between them two. Who's going to get the other kind of wing position? I think there's enough creativity around there still for Watkins to get chances anyway, to get goals. I don't know if you owned him for much as last year, but he was kind of an annoying lad to own. He never kind of hauled, but he got an assist pretty much every game you had him, and he only blanked the odd time. But for 7.5 million, if he keeps ticking on like that, it's as long as he's getting returns, you can't really argue. But just on that penalty thing, it's going to be interesting who takes him for Villa.
Yeah, and like I said, obviously Watkins kind of missed one, then was off them, and then I think Villa missed another one potentially, if I can remember correctly. But just an interesting story on Ollie Watkins. Obviously, he bagged that hat trick against Liverpool.
Yeah,
there was one or two of the lads in the fantasy Kickabout league that had him as sub that day. And I'm pretty sure they didn't sub him for the rest of the season. They kept him in every single game just with the off chance that he put in a performance like that again.
Yeah.
But just to touch on obviously Ivan Toney, Brentford, newly promoted club, pretty much brand new to the Premier League. Over the years, I was trying to think back to earlier today. Over the years, we've had like some players perform really, really well in the Championship and then just couldn't make that step up. I'm trying to think. I think Charlie Adams might have been one that.
Adel Tarapt is a good one. He was
yes,
good in the Championship, yeah. And then when he came, then he was useless. Then it's hard to know. I'm just kind of going with Toney on the basis he's so high owned. I can see them scoring against Arsenal, to be honest, and kind of he's their main man. I know there's Mbuemo as well that kind of plays up front with him. He's a 5.5 midfielder, but it's just the fact that his ownership, if he scores against Arsenal, even if he gets an assist, he could be 6.6, 6.7 by game week 2. So it's just the fact that he's so high owned. If he doesn't kind of start off well, he's an easy route for Pookie when Norwich's fixtures kind of turn, then game week 4, game week 5. But you can't really argue he's 6.5. He's on penalties for Brentford. Brentford are a good attacking team. I don't know how many goals they scored against or they scored in the Championship last season, but I always remember checking live score. There were 3 or 4 goals nearly every second week, third week. I know the Championship's obviously a lot different standard to Premier League, but you can't, if 6.5 striker, there's a chance to be taken on him anyway, at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll say I definitely have him in my team as well. And I heard a quote from during the week where he was saying he doesn't really like to set himself goals, but he believes he's going to score between 14 and 17 goals. So again, that's positive news for FPL managers that have taken a chance with Ivan Toney. Just before we touch on one of your threads that you put up recently on Twitter, just want to go back to the defense and kind of look at we'll say obviously you're looking maybe at more premium options in midfield if you go with Trent and then you go with Shaw at the defense. You have a couple of premiums maybe in midfield and potentially another one up front, depending. What kind of, we'll say 4 mils, 4.5 mils would you be looking at in defense? Because I was just thinking, I went with Ben White, threw him in when he was with Brighton, and then I was thinking, Arsenal actually, like, they obviously concede a lot of goals, but they keep a decent amount of of clean sheets. And at 4.5 million, he's obviously guaranteed to start. He mightn't be a bad shout, but and also his former colleague and a guy we know quite well, Shane Duffy, potentially can you see him maybe coming back into that Brighton team at 4 mil?
Yeah, to be honest, I can't. No, I know he's been playing a few preseason games and Duffy now, but it's if he's grand if you're looking for a 4 million for your bench, you know you've Manquillo, you've Duffy, you've kind of Brandon Williams. They're the kind of three most owned 4 million kind of fodder on your bench. I'd be interested to see how well Brandon Williams. There's talk of him going to Norwich, but apparently he's only going to be back up, so I'm not sure how much game time he's going to get there. So just kind of be wary on that now. If he goes and he's not playing, he's going to kind of fall down to 3.9, just if he's high enough owned. No, going back to the best 4.5 defenders. White Arsenal, yeah, they've a nice kind of fixture swing. I think it's game week 4, game week 5. You can potentially see a few kind of clean sheets with them there. I had no more than yourself. I had White last year. He was a good lad for taking away the clean sheets, but very frustrating to own kind of the fact that when they always had corners, I don't know how it was just like a magnet to Dunk's head. White never kind of ever got a shot on target, shot off target, whatever. Yeah, but kind of so if you're looking at him, his kind of ceiling might be only kind of 6 points. There's a few games I had him now. He got 3 bonus, and that's kind of when Brighton were kind of holding possession, and there was a lot of kind of balls being played between him and Dunk. Like obviously with the new bonus point system, you get kind of up the bonus points if you're kind of how many passes you are successfully passed. Then we had Lamptey. Obviously, Lamptey was a kind of famous one on Twitter and Instagram, but then he's going to be out now for the start of the season. You've a kind of, I don't know if you heard the crack with Vinagre last year. That was the big talk with Wolves. Yeah, so you've kind of Vinagre 2.0 with 8 Nori. He's another 4.5 for Wolves, but I've been just kind of, I don't know too much about him. I know he played a few games last year, but he was kind of like in and out of the squad. He's been starting left mid for Wolves now in 2 of their kind of preseason games, but I think it might be a risk to go to him to start the season. They've a nice fixture swing. I think game week 4, game week 5. So if he's starting on the regular for Wolves now, even if he's kind of playing in a more advanced position, he's certainly one to look at. But then the kind of main one I have in my team at the moment is Luke Ayling for Leeds. I can see good value in him there now. United to start off, you obviously won't be playing in that game, but I think Leeds game week 5 to game week 11, there's a good shout for clean sheet potential. Again, then his Ayling's only kind of point ceiling is going to be around six points because he's not the most kind of prolific goal scoring or assist scoring player in fantasy, especially last year. Dallas kind of outshone him. But yeah, for a clean sheet, he's an easy way to get into the Leeds defense at 4.5 million.
Yeah, no, there's some good recommendations and some players obviously to look out for. Obviously, it's always very hard because, like I said, Lamptey picked up an injury in pre-season, so he's out. You could have players potentially playing all pre-season games and then not starting on come the first day of the season. So it is very hard to determine obviously who's going to play, who's on penalty kicks as well, and all that to go with FPL. So now we might actually just touch on your recent thread that you put up on Twitter, and it's also been on your Instagram in 3 separate parts. If you want to talk to us a little bit about it, and again how we'll say FPL managers can use it to their advantage, to maybe gain a lead in their own individual leagues or with potentially an overall or a higher overall rank.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, I'm just getting the thread up here. So I don't remember all the kind of fixture swings. Yeah, but basically FPL it's a game where it's sounding very vague now, but it's where you're getting players basically to score your points. So one way of helping with that is obviously having them at the right time when they've the kind of easiest fixtures to score points. Yeah. but obviously we can only kind of go off the season to start off with fixtures. Obviously, there's the big debate during the year with FPL form over fixtures, but only kind of thing we can start off is with fixtures. So getting the players into your team at least at the right time when the right fixtures is going to give you an upper hand over your kind of rivals, say in your mini leagues, or how are you going to get up the ranks in FPL. But looking obviously to start off, Villa, game week 1 to 3, they've Watford away, Newcastle at home, and Brentford at home. If I know Grealish will probably be a City player by then, but as we mentioned there earlier on, Ollie Watkins 7.5, Buendia 6.5. I don't know how they got on the last preseason game, but they're against Walsall. Twitter kind of went into meltdown when Watkins scored 2 and Buendia got 2 in the first half. So I'm pretty confident in them 3 first games. We're going to see a lot of Watkins goals, Buendia assists, or kind of vice versa. But as we were saying, it's going to be interesting who will actually be on penalties for Villa. I know it was a lot of El Ghazi taking them last year, but if they've signed Bailey now, is he going to be on El Ghazi's wing, or is El Ghazi going to swap over to the right side? It's hard to know. But yeah, Villa for the first 3 anyway. Scrolling down, Chelsea have a tough start, but yeah, I love the kind of phrase I seen last year was kind of Tuchel Tombola. So it's like another kind of form of pep roulette where you didn't know who was going to start for Chelsea. So game week 7 is for the first 6 game weeks. I think they've Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs, and City. Chelsea having the first 6. So game week 7, when the fixtures swing, I know there's going to be a lot of people kind of wildcarding early, and so you'll kind of know what team Tuchel is going to be playing every week in, week out. But yeah, no, then so basically clean sheets are the kind of ones the thing that shouts out for you with Chelsea. So getting kind of two Chelsea defenders around game week 7 is going to be something a lot of FPL managers are going to do. But jumping on them, so 5-6 game weeks in that you can see a lot of clean sheets for Chelsea between game week 7 and 12. Which then sorry, forgot to mention there. So starting off with Villa, they've kind of for the next 6 after then they've kind of tough ones. So it's kind of like hopping on, hopping off. But Wolves kind of pair up nicely with Villa. So Jimenez, Watkins to Jimenez. I know everyone kind of Jimenez. He was always a bogey player for me. Now I always had him at the wrong time, but whenever I had him or I didn't have him, he was getting penalties, getting 3 bonus. He might only do one thing during the match. He was getting 3 bonus. So I think obviously he had the horrific injury there last year. But a lot of people are going to be looking forward to seeing Jimenez back in a Wolves jersey. And between game week, I think it's 4 to 11, he's going to be very popular, especially when Villa's kind of fixtures kind of tear down. Then we kind of Leeds game week 5 to game week 10, they're having the nicest start, as they're saying. We're talking about Luke Ayling there. He's good kind of bench kind of fodder for the first kind of 4 or 5 games until their fixture swing. We're saying he was an easy way into the Leeds defence. They've got 5-6 nice fixtures there in that kind of bracket, and you can potentially see a few nice or clean sheets for them. They're playing Newcastle, Watford. They've two promoted sides in that kind of 6 kind of game week gap, and a 4.5 you can't really give out for that, even if it's only 6 point ceilings, he's getting back. Then we went back to Liverpool, game week 1 to game week 6. Chelsea is their only kind of tough game week 3 opponent, and they're playing two promoted sides in that kind of 6-week fixture swing. So at the moment, obviously with Kane not confirmed to City, the triple up for Liverpool was very popular. I've seen a lot of teams going for the triple up, either with Trent and Robbo, and then Salah midfield. But then there's kind of a mixture then of going Jota and Salah, and then Trent in the back line. There's obviously, it's hard to know with Klopp as well. You know, Jota and Firmino share a lot of game time. So you've Robbo there at 7 million. Jota's at 7.5. If I can see I can see Liverpool keeping a few clean sheets, obviously, in that first six fixture games. So you've already with hopefully if they do keep a clean sheet, you've already a +4 for Robbo compared to Jota. So I'm currently on the two defense for Liverpool, but if Kane goes, I'll have to kind of reconsider that. All right.
And just on that Liverpool defence, obviously with Van Dijk and Gomez back and obviously getting a few minutes in pre-season, that's obviously 100% going to strengthen Liverpool's position at the back. And obviously that will be to the advantage of Trent and Robertson on either side. So
Definitely, yeah. Even balls into the box. I seen some trade last year that Liverpool play some. It was some ridiculous trade that whatever way they go, they always crisscross, which they do. Obviously, if you watch the games, they do. So balls in from Robbo into Salah, you can see a lot of Salah goals, Robbo assists compared to them Mane, Trent assists and Mane them at goals. But you've added bonus if you have to pick between the two of them. You've just added bonus to Trent on set pieces, and he's on corners as well. But yeah, then going down United, United have a nice kind of fixtures to start off with, but then game week 15 to game week 27, I think it's from October until the start of the start of December to February. They have an FDR rating, basically a fixture difficulty rating of 2 for pretty much, I'd say 80% of their games. So depending on what, there's a lot of kind of debate as well. Sancho or Bruno. I know Sancho gives you an extra, I think it's like 1.5, 2 million compared to going to Bruno, but you just don't know how he's going to fit into the team at the moment, especially we haven't seen him play yet. But yeah, Bruno basically on the fact that he's on penalties is where I'd be swinging at. But then come game week 15, we'll have a lot more insight in how United set up, who's kind of their most on form players. But hopefully by then surely we'll be going for a triple up. But yeah, no, I'm just kind of going through all the fixtures now. It's basically making sure the main idea of the trade was kind of give managers an insight. It's hard to, if you've got kind of one kind of fixture in front of you, you can't really plan on Wednesday. But it's just I thought it was a good idea just to take that down and kind of put it all together, see what their best kind of run of fixtures were, so managers at least have an insight that they can plan kind of transfer ahead of. Right, I know I need to get Kane, say game week 4, game week 5, and they kind of work off that then.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And that's something that's probably been my downfall over the years, is where I might plan 2 or 3 game weeks in advance maybe, and that's about it. Whereas
Yeah.
I just think this trade, and obviously again it's on your Instagram page, but just flicking through it, and I was able to sit down and jot out certain players. Like you're on already kind of making predetermined transfers in your head, obviously based on everyone that is at the time. But it's definitely something that's helped me and will help me throughout the season. So obviously that was great that you took out the time and put it together. But if you just want to say to any of our listeners where they can find the thread itself.
Choose great. Basically, I have a Twitter page called FPL Éire, so it's FPL_EIRE, and then it's the exact same. Then for Instagram, I was trying to get into kind of the TikTok kind of way, but I don't have time to. I try and edit a video on TikTok. It takes too long compared to writing a trade. It could be the same kind of time you spend writing a trade as editing a video on TikTok. But yeah, Twitter and Instagram. I'm trying to get the YouTube going myself now as well. But I'm FPL Éire then as well on YouTube. All right.
Yeah, so brilliant, guys. Make sure if you are on either of those platforms to drop him a follow. It's definitely well worth following Niall and his pages, just with the advice and information that he provides every week. And also, if you just want to touch on, isn't it every Friday that you were saying you do a Instagram?
Yeah. Come on, yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so basically every Friday on Instagram, just kind of it's yourself, kind of you get so many message requests on Instagram. It's so hard to get through them all. So just I pick a day of the week, Friday. I try and get through as many as I can, but Friday I do like an Instagram live just a day before the deadline, and obviously then my followers can kind of send in questions. Basically now half an hour, 45-minute live. I try to get through as many questions as I can, and then I just find it's an easier way, just having to try and go through all kind of messages, and then whoever's following me knows to be on that time just send in the question then.
Yeah, no, it's great. And our guys will definitely, and myself, will be definitely jumping on to get our questions in anyways to you. Because obviously Friday nights are very much about sitting down and planning out a fancy football team, as opposed to maybe planning a night out these days.
Exactly, yeah.
But just before we finish up, Niall, we might just do a couple of kind of quick fire questions just on the spot, and just for a bit of fun to finish up. So who do you think will be the top scoring player in FPL this season?
Um, if Kane goes to City, I could see him just the fact that City are goals galore, and especially if he's going to be on penalties for City, yeah, I'll be locking him in. But Salah a close second. Salah's always up there, so I've kind of have like I know I'm a United fan, but I kind of have that love kind of hate relationship towards Salah. Just you can't have any loyalties in this game, but Salah's he's always someone you kind of rely on for a return. But Kane and then closely followed by Salah, I'd say.
And we're going to write these down and come back to them at the end of the
Yeah, so
season. See
don't
who
ask me
we
how many
are.
points they're going to get now. No.
What for anyone starting out with FPL for the first time, what would be your number one tip to give them?
Yeah, so don't kind of if you have a bad week, don't kind of give up on it. Don't kind of react straight away. Don't be kind of knee jerk and chasing points, because it just brings me back to kind of last year. Funny enough, it's a kind of weird enough kind of anecdote, but one of my friends, he was playing FPL for the first time. Obviously, William against Fulham, I think, did he score or get 2 assists or something? He got like a 13-point return straight away. Then he brought him in then the Sunday morning, sorry, and then I think that pretty much is the only thing William done for Arsenal all season. So just kind of there's a good kind of thing. There's going to be a lot of kind of bandwagons earlier on, and game week 1 to game week 5 when there's the most kind of players playing FPL, and don't be afraid to kind of sit back, stay away from the laptop. There's even there's going to be a lot of kind of price rise around that kind of fixture kind of span. But best thing I think is even sitting back, wait till kind of Thursday, Friday night when all the training sessions are over, you got more of an insight that you've listened to all the press conferences. Especially with COVID as well. We mentioned that earlier on. You don't know how COVID is going to affect kind of matches, kind of fixture postponements. Hoping it won't, but yeah, just kind of having patience, especially if it's your first year playing, and kind of don't kind of knee jerk, don't react straight away after matches.
Perfect. No, that is a great one, because even some of the experienced players tend to
It's even
jump in,
myself.
including myself at times. So
Yeah,
I'll definitely be taking that on board
no.
again. Every year there's a surprise player in terms of FPL, and obviously in terms of just performing within the Premier
Yeah,
League, and probably would point to maybe Aston Villa's goalkeeper Martinez last
yeah,
year. Can you see at the moment any, or who would you say could be a potential surprise player this season for FPL?
yeah. There's a lot of hype obviously behind him, but you have Toney there for Brentford, but it's hard to know how that's going to go. He could easily start off the flyer, and he could easily kind of wilter away. There's a lot of people comparing him to Mitrovic. When I was getting messages on Instagram, but you have to kind of reconsider that Mitrovic hardly played for Fulham at all last season. And it's only I'm trying to think of something else, because I don't want to say kind of take the easy route and say Toney. But you put me on the spot now. I'm going to say probably Buendia. Just the fact that if Grealish is gone, he's going to be their main kind of playmaker for Ollie Watkins running behind. So I'm going to stick with Buendia, but around that kind of same price bracket, you have Rafinha, but he's going to be too high on, so he's not kind of like an odd one to pick. But yeah, Buendia is going to be probably the surprise there.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that, especially if Grealish does move on to City, and for the price that he is, 6.5
Yeah.
mil, can't really go too wrong with such a creative player. What would you rather? Would you rather Pep Roulette or Tuchel Roulette?
Tuchel Tombola. That's what they
Yeah,
call
we'll
it.
go with that
Yeah. Just the fact that you'd be going out Friday night. You'd have your team done, then you'd be waking up at 12:30, not feeling the best of form after going out Friday night after work, and then waking up to 12:30 kickoff. You've got 3 Man City players, and you see they're all on the bench or something like that. It's just something. It's obviously, it brings an added factor to the game, that you can't be putting all your eggs in one basket. Obviously they're the most attacking team in the league, but it's something. Yeah, it's something for probably going back to your last question for new players. Just don't be saddened, or don't let Pep Roulette kind of affect your game. Just pick players for City, and then just hope they play, because even if they come off the bench, there's a good chance they can score points.
Perfect. Two more questions. What for you? What is the most annoying thing about FPL?
Most annoying thing is Jesus, is when it brings you back to kind of when Spurs played Southampton. I think it was game week 2 or game week 3 last season, and I needed to get Bruno into my team, and then they got rid of Bruno for Son. But it's the most annoying thing ever, where when you transfer someone out, or you were going to buy this player, and then he ends up scoring. Then just it's the one kind of thing. It's you get them little kind of dopamine releases when your player scores. That you get that kind of 2 minute kind of elation when they score. But yeah, it's probably the worst feeling in FPL when you pick a player and you're deciding between two, and then obviously the other player then goes on to score. But don't let it affect your weekend. And it's at the end of the day, it's only a game. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's what I was going to say. It is only a game. Yeah, no, it is only a game, even though it can be the most annoying thing,
yeah,
and you're sitting there scratching your head. But also, it can bring a thrill for FPL, can't it? Where we'll say you have a couple of Brighton and Burnley players,
yeah,
and you end up sitting down watching Brighton versus Burnley at probably we'll say last season at 6 p.m. on
yeah,
a Thursday night. It just brings something a bit different to some of the games. You obviously are invested a little bit more in the least popular fixtures
yeah,
because of the players that you have. So that's something obviously with FPL. But like I said, do not take it too seriously. It is
yeah,
only a game at the end of the day. Final question, Niall. If you were one of we'll say the owners of the FPL game,
yeah,
what rule change would you make and why? And the reason I'm asking this question was because I took part, and a couple of lads in the group took part in the Euro Fantasy.
yeah,
And obviously, when it came to their chips, there was a couple of different
yeah.
options, and even in terms of deadlines. Would you make any of those changes, or would you have one off the top of your head that you would like to introduce to the game?
Yeah, so basically, before you even said the Euro Fantasy, the first thing I thought was the limitless chip in the Euro Fantasy, where it was basically the same thing as a free hit, but you had literally an unlimited budget to pick whatever players you wanted. But no, Jesus, if they had the same kind of deadline, I know myself I wasn't going to play the Euro Fantasy, but then I ended up playing it. Whatever, but it was something you had to just keep your eye on so many times. Just as a deadline every day, you had to be making transfers, you had to be planning ahead to just even kind of getting your team in the right kind of formation. So you your players that are playing last on your bench, then you can transfer them in. To be honest, it's something you could debate all day, but the it's fairly decent that we have the two wild cards to play, between game week 1 and game week 18, 19. Free hit is fine, once there's always going to be a blank game week during the year, and then that's where you can stock up and get whatever players are playing and aren't playing out of your team. But then the triple captain, it's a very bogey chip, the triple captain one. I'd Salah last season. It's that's the same thing. Your previous question, like what gets you down the most when a triple captain does so well, you feel like the best expert in the world. But then, geez, when it goes wrong, it goes wrong. It's just something you need to kind of spread under the bin. But yeah, it's a hard one. I didn't kind of prepare for that question with what shift was going to be. But
To be honest, I won't lie. I just wrote it down kind of halfway through our conversation. So
yeah, we'll come back to that one later on, sure.
yeah, no, definitely. But Niall, thanks, Niall from FPL Éire. Thanks
Cheers.
so much for joining us on the Fantasy Kickabout, and obviously season 2, episode 1. But hopefully we'll be able to collaborate throughout the season,
Yeah,
and hopefully we'll be able to get you back on to do a few more podcasts. Hopefully when teams settle down,
yeah.
managers kind of know what's going on, that you'll be able to jump on and again provide some of your expertise in FPL. But no, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and we will chat to you soon.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me.